I saw my husband come out of my caregiver's room at 2:13 in the morning, not walk past it, not knock on it, come out of it. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And let me tell you something. When you've been married to a man for 46 years, you know the shape of his guilt. You know the weight of his footsteps, the way he breathes when he's hiding something, the look he wears when he's been caught in a lie before he even knows he's been caught. But that night, what shook me wasn't guilt, it was calm. His hand slid off the doorknob like he'd done it before. His shoulders were loose, his face was pale in the hallway light, but not panicked. If anything, he looked relieved. You tell me, what kind of husband slips out of a younger woman's bedroom in the middle of the night looking relieved? My name is Isella Vaughan, and I was 74 years old when that happened. Old enough to know when something in a house changes. Old enough to recognize when silence stops being peaceful and starts becoming dangerous. 3 months earlier, I had suffered a stroke, not one that took my mind, thank heaven, but one that took enough of my strength to leave me needing help to stand, bathe, dress, even cross my own bedroom without gripping furniture like a stranger in my own life. That was how Marit Sloan, aged 28, entered our home. She came recommended, quiet, competent, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who moved through rooms without disturbing the air. At first I thought that was a comfort. And then I started noticing things, tiny things, the way she looked at old family photographs too long, the way she sometimes answered questions I hadn't asked out loud, the way conversations between her and my husband, Corvin Hale, seemed to stop the second I entered. Maybe you would have dismissed it. Maybe I should have. But when illness makes everyone around you start speaking more gently, more carefully, more privately, you begin to wonder whether they're protecting you or managing you. I stayed still in my bed and watched Corvin cross the hallway in his socks, trying not to make the floorboards creak. He never looked toward me, never checked whether I was awake. He just disappeared into our room and closed the door halfway behind him. And suddenly, every strange moment from the past few weeks came rushing back at once. The whispers, the missing papers, the glances. So I pushed the blanket off my legs, gripped the arms of my wheelchair, and rolled myself into the dark hallway, straight to her door, my fingers wrapped around the handle, and from the other side, I heard 2 people breathing. It wasn't the first time something felt wrong. It was just the first time I couldn't pretend it wasn't. Have you ever ignored a feeling because facing it would change everything? Because once you know, there's no going back to comfort. That's where I was. Before that night, I had collected small, harmless doubts. The kind you explain away when you're tired, when you're recovering, when everyone keeps reminding you that your memory might not be what it used to be. Corvin used to tell me everything. 46 years of marriage builds habits you don't even notice until they disappear. Lately, he had become selective. He'd leave the room to take phone calls. He'd lock drawers he never locked before. And when I asked simple questions, he'd answer them too quickly, like he'd rehearsed them. And then there was Marit, always calm, always watching. She did her job well, too well. My clothes were folded before I asked. My medications were always on time. But sometimes I would catch her standing in the doorway, not moving, just observing me like I was something she was trying to understand rather than care for. Once I found her in my study, not cleaning, not organizing, reading, one of my old journals. When I asked what she was doing, she didn't flinch. She just smiled faintly and said, I wanted to understand your routines better. My routines, not my health, not my needs, my routines. And then came the moment I couldn't shake. One afternoon I was resting in the living room when I heard her voice from the kitchen, soft, low, on the phone. And she still doesn't remember everything, she said. A pause, then quieter. That helps. That helps. Helps what? When I rolled in, she had already ended the call, smiling again, always that same controlled expression. I started paying closer attention after that, and things didn't get better. They became patterns. Corvin leaving the bedroom late at night, Marit's door never fully closed, conversations stopping when I entered, a tension in the air that didn't belong in my home. Then one evening, while looking for a document, I noticed something missing. Also an old photograph, one I kept in the back of my drawer. It was of me and my younger sister, Tavira. I hadn't seen her in decades. No explanation, no reason for it to be gone. Just gone that night. As I lay in bed pretending to sleep, I heard Corvin's voice drift faintly down the hallway. Low, urgent. She can't know who you are yet. I felt my chest tighten. Who you are? Who exactly was living in my house? I stopped asking questions out loud and started listening instead. Because here's the truth. When people think you're weak, when they think you're confused, when they think you're not paying attention, they get careless. And I needed them to get careless. So I played my role. I let my hands tremble a little more than usual. I repeated questions I already knew the answers to. And I let silence sit where suspicion should have been. And at night I kept my eyes closed, just enough. But I was awake every time. And Corvin, he had a pattern. He waited until after midnight, always after checking on me, always after making sure I was asleep. Then he'd slip out of bed, careful, slow, like a man trying not to wake something fragile. Except I wasn't fragile. I was watching. The third night I prepared. I left my phone recording on the bedside table. Not for proof, yet. For clarity. The next morning when I listened back, my hands didn't tremble anymore. They went cold. Fragments at first. Footsteps. A door opening. Low murmurs. Then words. The inheritance. A pause. She signed it once before. My breath caught. Memory gaps are worse than we thought. I stopped the recording. I didn't need to hear more. This wasn't an affair. It was something far worse. They weren't sneaking around for desire. They were planning something. And it involved me. That same afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I called my daughter Elvrin, 46 years old. Practical. Steady. The one person I thought would cut through the fog and tell me I was being ridiculous. But when she arrived and I told her everything, she didn't dismiss it. She didn't comfort me. She hesitated. You ever see someone hesitate when they shouldn't? That split second where truth almost comes out but doesn't? That's what she did. Mom, you've been through a lot, she said carefully. Maybe don't jump to conclusions. Jump to conclusions. I stared at her. Are you saying I imagined this? No, she said quickly. Too quickly. I'm just saying, don't push things right now. Don't push things. Not you're wrong. Not "I'll handle it," just "don't push." That's when it hit me. She knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough. That night, I went into Corvin's study while they were distracted. Locked drawer, new habit. I found the key exactly where he thought I wouldn't look. Inside, documents, legal drafts, a revised will, my name at the bottom, my signature. Perfect, except I didn't remember signing anything. And there it was, a witness line, signed by Merritt Sloan. I stared at it for a long time. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. That night, when Corvin slipped out again, I didn't wait. I rolled straight to her door. My hand closed around the handle, and just as I was about to turn it, a voice behind me whispered, "I don't open it." I froze. It was Elvrin. My own daughter was the one trying to stop me. I didn't turn right away. I just sat there, my hand still wrapped around the handle, feeling the cold metal press into my palm, like it was the only real thing left in the house. "Don't open it," Elvrin whispered again, closer this time. There was something in her voice I hadn't heard since she was a child. Fear, not panic, not confusion, certainty. Slowly, I turned my head. She was standing behind me in the dim hallway, barefoot, arms wrapped around herself like she'd been standing there for a while, watching me. "How long have you been there?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she shook her head slightly. "Mom, if you open that door, you can't undo it. You can't undo it." That wasn't a warning. That was a line. A line she knew I was about to cross, and suddenly everything inside me sharpened. The whispers, the missing photo, the recording, the signature I didn't remember writing, my husband, my caregiver, my daughter, all standing on one side of something I wasn't allowed to see. "Move," I said. "Mum, move." My voice didn't shake this time. Hers did. But she didn't step aside. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I pushed forward, hard. The wheelchair lurched, catching her off guard just enough for me to reach the handle fully. And I turned it. The door opened slowly, quietly. No dramatic swing, no sudden noise. Just enough to let the truth breathe out into the hallway. Inside, they weren't in bed. They weren't even close. Corvin sat at a small table. Merritt sat across from him. Between them. Documents, on stacks of them, organized, marked, studied. A recorder sat in the middle, quietly playing something I recognized instantly. My voice, old, slower, speaking words I didn't remember saying. I, Isella Vaughan, being of sound mind. The room smelled like paper and ink. Not secrecy, preparation. Corvin stood up the moment he saw me. "Isella." But Merritt didn't move. She didn't look surprised, didn't look guilty. She just watched me, calm, measured, like she'd been expecting this exact moment. That's when I saw it. On the table, half covered beneath a stack of documents. A photograph. Old, faded, but unmistakable. Me and Tavira, my sister, the one who disappeared from my life decades ago. My breath caught. The room tilted slightly. This wasn't about betrayal. This was about something buried, and something I had forgotten, or chosen to. Corvin stepped forward again. "We were going to explain—" "Not yet," Merritt said, quietly. He stopped. Just like that. He stopped, and then she looked directly at me, not as a caregiver, not as a stranger, but as someone who had been waiting a very long time. "You really don't recognize me?" she said softly. A pause. Then, "Do you?" You really don't recognize me, do you? The question didn't land all at once. It settled slowly, like dust in a room that hadn't been opened in years. I looked at her, really looked this time, not as my caregiver, not as the quiet woman moving through my house like a shadow, but as a face, a structure, a presence, and something in it, echoed, not familiar, but inherited. No, I said. My voice felt smaller than I expected. She nodded once, like she had already prepared herself for that answer. My name is Marit Sloane, she said, but that's not the name that matters to you. A pause, then calmly, my mother was Tavira. The air left my lungs, not dramatically, not loudly, just gone. Tavira, my sister, the name I hadn't spoken in decades. The photograph on the table suddenly felt heavier than anything else in the room. That's not possible, I said, but the words came out thin, weak. It is, Marit replied. She died 6 years ago. Silence filled the space between us. Corvin didn't interrupt this time. He just stood there, watching me like he was waiting for something to break. And maybe it did, because memories, fragmented, buried, carefully ignored, started shifting. Old arguments, legal papers, accusations I had dismissed as bitterness. She said you took everything, Marit continued, the estate, the assets, that you changed the documents before they were finalized. I didn't, I started, but the sentence didn't finish, because something stopped it. Not her, not Corvin, me, a flicker, a memory, a moment I had locked away because it had been convenient to forget. I corrected them, I said slowly. The room stayed silent. Even I heard the difference, not denied, corrected. Marit's expression didn't change. You altered them. There were complications, I said. She would have lost everything anyway. That wasn't your decision to make. No anger, no raised voice, just fact. And somehow that landed harder than anything else. Corvin finally spoke, quietly. I found inconsistencies in the records. Last year, he said. After your stroke, things didn't line up. Dates, signatures. I didn't want to believe it. So you brought her here, I asked. I contacted her, he corrected. We needed to know the truth. And the will. I looked at the papers. Marit answered this time. We were documenting everything, not stealing, not forging, preserving, the recording, my voice, old statements I had made, evidence, not manipulation. I sat there, the weight of it settling in, not betrayal, exposure. Elvrin stepped forward from the hallway. I had forgotten she was even there. I knew parts of it, she said quietly. Dad told me. I didn't know how to tell you. Of course she didn't. How do you tell someone their past isn't what they remember? The legal process didn't take long after that. Once everything surfaced, the estate was reopened, reviewed, corrected. Marit received what had been withheld, not everything, but enough to balance what had been taken, fair, precise, final. She moved out 2 weeks later, no goodbye beyond a nod, no reconciliation, just closure. Corvin stayed, but something between us changed, not broken, not whole, just altered. And Elvrin, careful now, measured with her words, like she wasn't sure which version of me she was speaking to. A month later I sat alone in my study. The photograph had been returned, me and Tavira, younger, certain, standing side by side like nothing could come between us. I placed it on my desk, not hidden this time, not buried. and I looked at it longer than I ever had before, because the truth wasn't behind that door. It never was. It had been sitting inside me, waiting to be remembered.